U.S. cities could be forced to get rid of lead pipes. Israel and Hamas agreed to extend a pause in fighting, and we're starting the show with Henry Kissinger, who died yesterday. I'm Jeff Pierre, and this is The 7 from The Washington Post. It's Thursday, November 30th. Let's get you caught up with today's 7 stories. Number 1. Henry Kissinger died yesterday at the age of 100. Kissinger was America's top diplomat under Presidents Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. He was the only person to ever serve as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State at the same time. He held a level of power that has rarely been equaled by anyone who was not president. Kissinger shaped key policy shifts with China, Vietnam, the Soviet Union, and the Middle East. His diplomacy led to some of the most momentous developments of the late 20th century. And he won a Nobel Peace Prize in 1973 for the negotiations that led to the end of America's military participation in Vietnam. But Kissinger's legacy is a divisive one. His critics have branded him as a war criminal. They hold him responsible for the secret bombing of Cambodia, a neutral country, in 1969. And they say he was at least indirectly responsible for a coup that overthrew Chile's legally elected socialist government in 1973. At number 2, Israel and Hamas agreed to extend a pause in fighting for another day. Since the pause began Friday, 210 Palestinian prisoners, 73 Israelis, and 24 foreign nationals have been released. That's according to figures from the United Nations. Yesterday, an American-Israeli mother, Liat Benin, was freed after being held by Hamas for more than 50 days. Here's President Biden speaking about her release.
Got some very good news to report. Liat Benin is safe in Egypt. She's crossed the border. I talked with her mother and father. They're very appreciative, and things are moving well. She'll soon be home with her 3 children.
An estimated 159 hostages remain in the Gaza Strip, including Benin's husband and more U.S. citizens. Israel says the pause could continue to allow for more hostages to be exchanged for prisoners, but it won't agree to a permanent ceasefire. The U.S. is increasingly concerned that an expected Israeli offensive in southern Gaza will result in thousands more civilian casualties after the pause comes to an end. Number 3. An Indian official was accused of ordering an assassination in New York City. U.S. prosecutors alleged yesterday that an employee of India's government tried to organize the killing of a Sikh separatist in May. Prosecutors said the plot was foiled in June. The Indian official hasn't been named, but the target is believed to be Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon. He's the general counsel for the New York-based Sikhs for Justice. The group wants to carve an independent Sikh state away from India. The alleged link between India and the assassination plot on U.S. soil could strain ties between the two countries. It follows similar allegations made in September by Canadian authorities against India's spy services. Number 4. The Global Climate Summit, known as COP28, started today in Dubai. Tens of thousands of people will gather for the United Nations annual conference. It's scheduled to run until December 12th. And there's a lot at stake here. The world is far off track from meeting its goals to limit the worst effects of climate change. Leaders need to find ways to reduce planet warming emissions. It's also hoped that wealthy governments will agree on next steps for a fund to help vulnerable countries cover the cost of climate disasters. The conference is taking place in Dubai because it's the Asia-Pacific region's turn to host, and the United Arab Emirates made an unopposed bid. But as a major oil producer, it's a divisive setting for climate talks. The EPA wants U.S. cities to replace lead pipes to protect children. That's number 5. The agency proposed a rule yesterday which, if finalized next year, would require water utilities to replace lead pipes that carry tap water to homes, schools, and offices. Lead can cause irreversible cognitive damage and other health problems, especially in young children, and cities have struggled to get rid of around 9 million lead pipes that remain. But replacing all of them would be a massive operation, and it wouldn't be cheap. The EPA has said it could cost $45 billion. And the proposed rule doesn't fully answer the question of who would pick up the bill. Number 6, Google will start deleting old inactive accounts tomorrow. You could permanently lose old photos, files, emails, and other data saved with Google on products like Gmail, Google Photos, and Google Drive. But if you're a YouTuber, don't worry, that isn't affected. The deletions will affect accounts that have been inactive for 2 years, and Google said it'll send out notices to backup email addresses or phone numbers ahead of time. If you want to save any accounts, you should sign into them today. That will buy you more time to decide if there's anything you want to keep. You can find tips for recovering your old accounts in our newsletter. And at number 7, astronomers found 6 unusual planets orbiting a sun-like star. These newly discovered planets are about 100 light years away in a suburb of our galaxy, the Milky Way. A paper found that the planets formed at least 4 billion years ago and are all pretty much the same size. Scientists are pretty hyped about them. They believe that the planets have orbited in the same pattern for their entire existences. Now, that is unusual. Most planetary systems that we know of have been disrupted by a catastrophic impact or the close passage of another star. This one formed, found an orbiting pattern, and then nothing really happened to change it. Researchers hope that studying this untouched system could help them unravel some of the mysteries of how planets form and evolve. That's the show for today. If you don't already listen to our evening news podcast, Post Reports, please check it out. That's where you can hear my colleagues from around the newsroom digging in on exclusive reporting from the Post. Yesterday, they published a story about the oil executives leading the climate talks in Dubai. Just search for Post Reports wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to rate and subscribe to the show. I'm Jeff Pierre, and I will meet you back here tomorrow.